Good. All right, let's do this. Wow, that's loud. 3, 2, 1. Great turnout. Thank you very much to spend your time after lunch with me. So now we're going to use a bit of our creative side of our brain, taking the advantage that we are digesting at the same time. I am Ines Garcia. I'm an Agile coach and a Salesforce MVP. And for the ones that doesn't know, I actually studied art for 2 years. Now, if you think about the evolutionary side of things, as a species, we have been around for 30,000 years. Yet, the written world has been around only for 4,000 years. So we are so much better at processing things with visuals than we are with words. At heart of storytelling as a humans, from cave paintings, prehistoric cave paintings, or things you may have seen this morning to get over here, the London Underground. Like, can you imagine this on text? And or, visuals, charts, diagrams, things that we use every day. For the ones that may have not played with, if you use Lucidchart, you have a great plugin to add Salesforcean things. It really helps you to spin up your diagram so much faster, all the little icons and stuff, plus it gives you consistency. So if you haven't, please have a look. Here we have data model, but you can use it as well from like multi-org or single-org architecture and integrations patterns and multiple different things. Now, seeing comes before words. A kid is able to recognize before they speak. So if you are not taking the most out of visuals yet, you definitely should start to. Because our brain, how it processes, at least 50% is visual way. So it's how the brain works to collect information, stores information, process information, and then recalls it back. So unless you hook an image into a concept, an idea, some words, the information comes through one ear, then sails through the brain, and then exits the other end. And then with image, you have like the power of immediacy. You can consume something within seconds without the weight that language will give you. One study says that 2/3 of employees are so much better at understanding visuals, yet most of the information that we send each other is text-based. Think of emails, think messages, really heavy plain text. 20% of the text is remember versus 50% of visual. What happens when when you are presented with stuff like that? It's not only about the content and how you process it or not, but also what's happened behaviorally as a collective. We need to be sharper in the way that we operate. Because our brain can process 7 bits of information at once, and that's all well and good. It has this short storage versus long-term storage. And it's very helpful in a way that you perhaps have a verification code from your mobile and you need to put it in the screen. Words tend to be sitting in the short-term memory space versus visuals, they tend to sit in the other one. Have you been in a meeting, in a situation similar to that, where you have all your discussion and at the end of it, somebody tries to wrap up and says, do we all have clarity? Everybody knows what we're doing next. And so you have this answer, yeah, but actually, factually, everybody goes in their own diversion of their own take of what just happened. And I speak about this a bit more in the Salesforce Agile book. Now, drawing, visualization, charts, diagrams, icons, all that stuff is really, really useful when you're doing things like this. It helps you to clarify, helps you to order things, helps you process and recall. It helps you to find patterns and digest that information in a way that you just couldn't do with words only. And for me, one of the superpowers of all is that it enables co-creation in a way super powerful that you wouldn't be able otherwise. To come together, to draw something, to find a common agreement and understanding through visuals is super memorable. So if we apply the work that we do a lot of stuff, isn't it? data strategy. You can use visuals for all these things, to design the flow of information across systems, your workflows, your experiences. What else do I have here? Solution architecture, all that stuff, your data model. All of this can be superpower with visuals. Now, careful. Please don't. It's very easy to make things complex. When you're infusing things with visuals, keep it simple. Clarity is what you're going for. Make it easy for yourself so you can maintain it, right? As soon as you finish any sort of documentation or visual, at that time it's going to become stale. So as easier to maintain, the better. When you're doing so, avoid either data silos or org silos and tech debt, and also quick fixes because they always come and bite back. Right? You don't have to be a self-proclaimed artist. I am not. I'm really not. So I wanted to show you a few things, few figures, if you are unsure about all this drawing business, that you can use every day. And it becomes very simple. It can start from the who's when you're having a conversation and you have a lot of different information coming to you. Start plotting who, the different entities, the different actors, just plot them down. The next thing that you tend to draw is connections in between those elements. Where is that information and things moving to, from? Helps you to see those connections. You can see that how many, which is a fantastic way to see how things scales, what's the volume. It gives you a flavor of amount. And the when, because I think we are obsessed with time, because time is perishable. So having the ability to see visually how many things are happening at once or not is really useful. Other things that you can draw are things like you will have a start of something and an end of something. We had a session before on UX and architecture. You've seen some of that, and you see as well in the functionality that we use, such as flows or engagement studio in Padot. Yes, I still call it Padot. And then you use squares to represent your actors, your stock, those arrows to represent the in and out flows of information, and the stock diamonds for decision elements. And we are so good at thinking and even visualizing some happy path. This happens, then this happens. All well and good, but life doesn't always work that way. So having the ability, having those poses, those decision elements, that helps you to say, okay, what if this doesn't happen? What happened? Even though it gives you a void, that's also a great thing to have. Then you use loops. Things that you can draw also are loops, so either reinforcing loops or balancing loops. And then you frame things around boundaries. Right? So if you're talking about different systems, so where is that boundary that you are imagining from that particular entity? When I was preparing for the talk, I was trying to give you something that you may have not seen. So I was trying to fetch different images that I use a lot of different visuals that I use often, but not the ones that you may have seen before. So we had a great session with Matt earlier on. I'm not going to show you some of those diagrams. I'm going to show you different things. So when I was collecting them, 3 themes sort of surface. And the first theme is how I use visuals to help us to make decisions. So that we can determine impact of something is going to give us context and constraints. So the 5 O's that I came up with. So using visuals is going to give you options. It's going to show you observations. It's going to surface outliers, things that overlaps, and ultimately the outcomes. And for the ones that have played, that's exactly what my game of birds, nuts, and thirds does. How in a moment we can visualize what do we think we are on an item, right? So that we can define what the outcomes that we want to happen and how we're going to get there. One of the things that yet is a visual as well is a matrix. This is very simple. I use this a lot when we are looking to add an add-on into an instance. So before you go and see new flashy things and get distracted, plot down your variables. What are all the things that are important for you for that thing that you want to add? How it interacts with custom objects, any sort of limitations, what is the pricing? All those things are variables that you care about. And then, and only then, You go to the marketplace and say, who suits what I want? And color code it. And so it gives you, using visuals, it gives you the ability as a team to have much more informed decisions and being able to actually confront some of them and say, how important is for me variable 6? Another way you could use matrices. I'll probably color code it very similarly. This I took from Trailhead, and I split the table in two, but it's essentially that. So you have your different variables, and then your options at the top, and is for the man where you have multiple different ways that you could look at how your sites or multiple sites could support your internalization, whatever. Thank you. So in terms of the number of catalogs, how it's going to work across multiple currencies, how much you're going to customize, and I'll probably just color code it to make it very easy to digest. This is an example of a renewal. So we were using an application times two conversations of renewal, so very easily we could segment that application into things that we use, we don't use, had several different sections of that. And that really helped us inform those conversations and make a decision ultimately. And not everything has to be matrices, it just happened to happen when I was looking what I'm using. And this is an example of a startup that I've been working with, where it is beautiful. It's the situation that we have a blank canvas. This doesn't happen often, no technology attached, just ideas. And so every conversation, more ideas, more byproducts, world endless possibilities of what we could do. Fantastic. Now we had to start making decisions to start building something so we could go to market and prove ourselves wrong or right and make a decision what we'll do next. So in this scenario, we have multiple ways to confront this. We could have, imagine, a Salesforce instance with multiple entities interacting with them. Option 1, option 2 could be multiple package in multiple instances and how they talk to each other. Option 3, completely agnostic. We have an orchestrator in the middle, and then we can send information across perhaps Salesforce instances or other things. So having a visualization of the three options, the different actors, it gave us as a team an opportunity to look and surface what will be the challenges of all of them, each one of them, and what about the benefits, and made a decision and start doing, delivering value sooner, safer, happier. That's the aim. All right, so that's decisions. Another theme that surfaced is that I use visuals a lot for information radiators. And what is this? This is the ability to have a macro view, a quick digest of something. And you have multiple different ways that you can do this. First one, I call it Scrooge, but it's essentially the ability to see the past, 3 columns, the past, where you're coming from, how things used to look like, the present, most likely what you are building for right now, and then the future, longer vision, how that's going to look like. And having a visual representation of the 3 side by side, it really helps to inform your conversation. You could be using mind maps, spider maps, swim lanes, mappings, journey mappings we were talking earlier on today. And this is an example of a mapping. It's an example of a practice in the agile world. It's called value stream mapping, where you're ultimately trying to optimize your time. So trying to reduce waste of time waiting in between different elements. But you could, I argue that we should be elevating our practice to look beyond time as a waste, but also materials and energy and transport and things like that. Another example of an information radiator, this was a team I was working with. So week 12, we pause and we look at our burn down. And that's basically the amount of stuff that we say we commit to do and how it looks through the days until the end of the sprint. And having the ability to surface in a visual, it gives us the opportunity to say, okay, right, can we find commonalities? What are the patterns? What is happening? Why is happening? How do we want it to happen? And what can we try next time? Another team, similarly, so we looked at where do we put our time and mind and effort into. We grouped the things on themes or epics, and then it clearly surfaced that we spend a lot of time in business as usual, right? In the dangerous miscellaneous bucket, or the pick list other stuff gets chucked in there. So what it is composed of, let's find out what really BAU is, and how we should be ordering our capacity, right? We only have certain time a day to deliver what's more important. And the third theme is about being able to see logic and systems. Right? That gives you that instantaneous processing of information. And then I just made this up, visual, right? So being able to see that logic and that systems is going to show you voids. It's going to surface ideas when you look at them. It's going to tell you a story. It's universal. It's easy to digest. And when you're doing so, please make it actual, how it is right now. It's very easy when you start drawing how you like the things to work or how you ideally plan for the thing to be used. So keep it actual. It's good to see when things are a bit spaghetti. And then the last is logic, but essentially surfaces logic. Now, who knows what this is? Anybody? Salesforce. Yeah, right. The story? Okay, so the legend tells us, once upon a time, Mark Benioff was, I don't know, in a bar or in a restaurant, I'm not sure, having a conversation with a high retail luxury brand CEO. And he picked up a napkin and drew the concept of, regardless how many applications you have, this is the customer 360. At the end of the day, we are here to serve the customer. And through that visual, that conversation, that drawing together, the legend tells us that they landed a very nice contract. Another way that you could surface that logic and information, this is a very, very brief attempt to convert my card game into a digital format, right? In the Salesforce world, we are very nicely helped to have the 3 layers of technology tied together, and that's business logic, database, and the user interface. When you move away to other more traditional technology development, things become a little bit more fiddly. And here on the left, you have the legend. It tells you purple is user action, green from end pages, backend is yellow, and things that we do client end is the blue. So you have this logic, these systems, these layers that you can surface. Can you imagine reading this in a documentation that we obviously thoroughly read? Another example that you could be looking at infusing things with visuals is your integrations. And this I took from the Salesforce developer website, and it's just an example of a remote calling, being able to see what's the processing and what happens after one. And last but not least, thank you, Neil, for letting me use this. So this is an example of a landscape when I was working with Hive. I stole this from Neil. And it's the story of our customer, Winnet. And it goes through the motions from acquisition, right, coming from multiple channels or whatever else, and then it can fit into the internal systems, either partner or direct sales or whatever else. Then it goes through an orchestrator in the middle that goes and sends information as well. Why? Because we want to process our fulfillment, so Winnet gets her products at home. And also we have the ability to charge for it and do all the billing and invoicing and the taxing, so much fun bits of it. And then at the end of the day is the support and in life of that very same customer. I used to use this a lot. So as a team, they had this rhythm of doing, every time somebody new will join, they will do a ramp-up process. So you spend your first 2 weeks not only meeting everybody, but also learning tons of stuff of the multiple systems. So when it was my turn, I was taking this with a coffee saying, hi, I'm Ines Garcia, and this is our landscape. This is the world that we play with every day, and really gives you an overview of something in an instant that you just wouldn't be able to digest otherwise. Yeah, and then it was great to use as well for other teams. So when we start working with other closer teams and stuff like that, always using this as a way to superpower the context. Now I feel compelled. Neil, I'm sure this has changed a lot. You want to chip in?
No, it hasn't actually.
It hasn't? What have I missed? What have I missed?
Nothing. You described it well, I think. Yeah, and it's still used to ramp people up.
Yeah, it's a great process to do. So if you're not doing ramp up process, you should also do that, visually or not. Right, really nothing captures, calms, and connects in a way that the live image does. So many times I'll be in a meeting and I've just been whiteboard or whatever to help us to bring alignment, to help us to see the same things, and to help us to make agreements moving forward. So if you're in a situation like this, just spin it with your team and draw something together. I really think this calming and connection is something more important than ever before. So play with it. And at the end of the day, it's a practice. You are only going to get better the more that you do it. So to close off, we actually had a very interesting session a few weeks ago. Have you ever seen this people that draws on a meeting and it's really cool at the same time? Right, so we were having a session about virtual note-taking. So all the different elements and how you should be like organizing the content and stuff like that. So you can get it for free on that link if you want to watch it. I thought it was useful and relevant, and somehow I was doing this talk, so there you go. Why not? And that's all what I had for you guys today. So I'm not sure how we're doing with time. We're doing good. Any questions?
Landscape views or with architecture views and evolve them as you go through the project, so they're constant reference points for you?
I think it depends. Depends of the project, depends of the customer, depends where they are. I quite like to have, I don't know how I call it. It's a master board where you have the end of the game, the vision, where you kind of come together, sort of workshopping, to define why are we even investing time and effort on this. Then you have a little bit of like a map of all the different stakeholders, why the things are important for them, and how much buy-in do you get out of them. And then you have filtering criteria, because we know there is always more things to do, there is always expansion and things and whatever. But to be able to deliver better and do that sooner and prove yourself wrong and reduce noise and focus into what matters, then having a clarity of filtering, such as we may be able to go live with web version, but we're not looking at mobile app or things like that, it gives a consistent visual that people can refer back. And then after that, it comes a little bit of like a mapping of a story mapping, so the beginning and end of the process that probably exists manually, but you are trying to enhance with automation and redefine how that looks like, and then you do the effort of what are the different pieces that you need to deliver for that. And then the very last section is all about deltas. It's about how your different feedback loops are giving you further information. So things that I thought I knew and I was proven right. Things I thought I knew and I was proven wrong. Things I didn't think about and we should really do. Right? So sort of like a delta section. So I kind of really like, I don't know how we could call it. We could make a word by the end of the day on this, like a mind map of a project. So I like to have that a lot. And then in terms of having a customer journey map, is also quite flavorsome, because you see those gaps, you see those voids, you see that the reality of who's using the system and how you think is designed to do is very different. So those are the things that I use very often. Anybody?
I've just got a point to make about, in my experience, it's not, like, don't be too precious about how polished a diagram is. The worst thing is that someone creates a diagram, it's so polished that everyone else is afraid to create a diagram because it can't meet that quality. So I go the reverse quite often and create a diagram that's pretty messy, almost the lowest grade, but it gets the point across to encourage other people to rework it.
Yeah. So the aim of the game is not to make something pretty, because pretty is very subjective. And we want to bring clarity and we want to bring simplicity. And one of the things that we did, and I thought was hilarious, you probably have the video somewhere, I think, about when we were drawing the whole architecture together. And then we had like this really fast playback of how everybody was coming in and putting notes on the things that we should really invest more time, because we have some tech debt here and whatever. And being able to draw this together and being able to see it together and being able to reference it as a live artifact is just so powerful. All right. We done? Thank you very much for your time, guys. Thank you.